Right, so I think we are at time. I know people are trickling in still, but we have a lot on our agenda, so I'd like to get started. So welcome everyone. Welcome to our first event of the year, the new LCN Resource Center and website launch celebration. Happy New Year, everyone. We're really excited to see you all and welcome the new year with you. My name is Sachiko Osawa, and I am the Membership Engagement and Community Practice Coordinator at the Leading Change Network, and I'm coming to you from Japan. So as you're joining, we'd like to ask you to share in the chat your name, where you're from, or where you're calling in from, and one word about how you're feeling today. Please also rename yourself with your first name and location. You can do that by clicking on your own name on the lower left-hand corner of your video screen or opening up the participants panel and choosing rename. All right, so yay, everyone. I'm seeing a lot of greetings in the chat. This is very, very exciting. So before we jump into the exciting stuff, I would like to go over a few important things. So this event is hosted by the Leading Change Network, or LCN, a global community of organizers, educators, and researchers. We develop and support new civic leadership that organizes community to build power and create change. And there are people all over the world creating change using the organizing and public narrative practices developed by Marshall Gans and his associates. But rather than having them work alone, we want our community to come together and learn from each other to organize more effectively, which the Resource Center is one of the big representations of what the spirit of collaboration and learning from each other is about. So we have programs organized around 5 domains. First is to teach, organizing, and increase teaching capacity. Second is to provide coaching and support for campaigns and organizations. Third is to foster community of practice where people can learn with and from each other. Fourth is to evaluate, adapt, and advance the framework. And finally, support decentralization through creating global structures. So what does this look like? Well, they can be learning events to share best practices and adaptations of how we organize and teach organizing. We have monthly online meetups for people to connect with leaders and organizers from around the world. Our orientation to organizing is a great way to learn the basics of the organizing public narrative practices. And of course, our resource center, which is filled with workshop guides, videos, case studies, all the materials for your public narrative and organizing needs. And we're most importantly a member-driven organizations with members all across the world. So if you're already trained in the framework and are not yet a member, we invite you to become one from our website. If you haven't been trained in our practices yet, you can join one of our upcoming orientation organizing sessions to get introduced to it. So here's what we're going to be doing as part of the celebration. So we'll have opening words from Mice and Marshall, followed by a presentation and tour of the LCN Resource Center by Holly from the Commons Social Change Library. We will take some time to get feedback and questions from you all. I know that you have a lot of questions, hopefully, and feedback that we can build on, and wrap up with remarks from the community in the spirit of celebration. And very finally, I know that we're all living on Zoom nowadays, but just wanted to make sure that we're all comfortable with the technology. So please make sure that you're on mute when you're not speaking so that there's no audio disturbances. We would love to see you on video as much as possible. So if you could turn them on and keep them on, that would be fantastic. I also encourage you to use the chat to share questions, reflections, and resources with one another. We'll also be using a tool called Mentimeter to collect feedback and questions from you later. This session will be recorded and the video will be shared on our public YouTube channel. We'll also be taking screenshots along the way to share on our website and social media later. So if you're not comfortable in appearing in them, you can keep your video off. And if you have any tech issues or questions related to tech, my colleague Mariana will be here to support you. So Mariana, if you can just say something in the chat so people know where you are. All right. So we had almost 200 people register for today's event. So let's take a moment to see who's in the room today. I would love to hear from each and every one of you. I know that there's not enough time. So here's a check-in question to get us started. This is our first event. It's January 11th. So I would love to know, what's your one hope for 2022? So let's take a couple of seconds for everyone to just drop a quick word or two in the chat of your hope for 2022. spaciousness, resurgence in community care. Wow, health, equity. This is amazing. Thank you. A lot of specific campaign goals, as well as really values around equity and justice, creating space for others and yourself. All right, thank you all for sharing. Keep those answers coming, because this I think represents the energy of the spirit of celebration in the room. All right, so we are going to kick off the celebration with opening words from Mais Erksusi, Executive Director of Leading Change Network, and Marshall Gans, Senior Lecturer at Harvard Kennedy School. So without further ado, let me pass the mic over to Mais, who will also be moderating the session today. So Mais, the floor is now yours.
Thank you, Sachiko, and welcome everyone. Very happy to have you here with us today on this celebration. Exactly 11 years ago, in 2011, I joined LOA to study organizing, leadership organizing and action with Marshall Gans. And I remember how mesmerized I was reading through each module, thinking how I was working in development for 5 years prior to that, without anyone mentioning all these amazing lessons. From the very first article, Services Are Bad for People, to John McKnight, by John McKnight, to The Tyranny of Structuralness by Joe Freeman, to Marshall's organizing notes. It was for me like an ongoing learning through these readings, and a great moment for reflection in my own world of activism and development prior to that. In the same year, I joined forces with others on the 6 Minutes campaign for reading. While taking organizing to the ground, every day was a valuable lesson. The word practice suddenly made more sense. It was indeed leadership practices that evolve and get other meanings and deeper insights once they are taken to the ground. The way you adapt the teaching and evolve it and take it to the people and change it and creates new meaning every time is truly fantastic. And these are all resources that continue to evolve and continue to be translated across the globe by thousands of practitioners who learned with Marshall or others and are everyday learning and developing those practices. When you are in the organizing sphere, oftentimes you wonder, have anyone done that before? For example, I wondered once, have anyone taught strategy with a different case study? Or have anyone done a game to enforce effective team in a certain like fun way? Or like, can coaches be developed in a different way that is better? How can I build my training team better? Like, how can I create better agendas for that? And to be surprised, the answer is always yes. Most probably someone has either started a bit of it or done a whole lot on it. And the Resource Center is to make sure that we actually share these resources and that we pass them on. And once we evolve something, we give it back. So we know that as an organizer, your most valuable resource is time. So instead of taking the time to reinvent the wheel, the idea of the Resource Center is to take an already existing resource and make it even better. Invest your time to make it even better and give it again back to the community. We are here today because Marshall was so generous with all of us in his sharing of his own lessons, but also in his time to connect us together and to coach us. It is a culture of generosity that this Resource Center is all about. It's about paying it forward and keeping the learning ongoing. So we really hope that we can all download from it, but also upload to it and share our own developments and innovations around the framework. I want to thank the Common Social Change Library and specifically Holly and Anche for bringing their expertise to us to evolve our old Resource Center into the new one we have today. I also would like to share with you that I know many of you have contributed to our listening drive that we did in the spring of 2022. The need for the Resource Center to evolve and be more searchable and more easy to find was one of the most highest requests from the community. So that's why we are very excited today that we are launching a beta version of the Resource Center that will keep evolving with you. And with that, I would like to give the floor to our mentor and coach, Marshall Gans, to say a few words.
Thanks so much, Mais. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. I happen to be in California, which is a good place for me to be. We're working with folks here to develop a program similar to that we have at Harvard here at Stanford. It's sort of like a mission to Silicon Valley. So this is kind of what is moving all this, and it's also nice to see blue sky and green trees and things like that, which are remarkable here. This is really a cool thing. I don't quite, how more clearly to say it. This is something that so many of us have wanted for so long, because one of the really unique things I think about this network is that it's very generative. It's not like everybody just takes this thing and does it over and over. People adapt, they innovate, they change. It's been put in so many different languages. To me, that's what's so really generative about what we do. And so the challenge has been keeping up with it and sharing it and making the most of it. And so this resource center is a big step in that direction. I think it's the result of two things happening. One is the leadership at LCN to step up and make this happen. Mais and everyone who works with her. And yeah, I see some applause, it's good. The other is the discovery of our friends in Australia, Holly and others, that, we've been doing work in Australia for some time, and really, it's very interesting. There's always a contingent in our distance learning class from Australia for whom it's the middle of the night, and their inspiration for it. Nobody else can complain about anything because they're the inspiration. They set a pretty high bar. But when I came across their website, it really blew me away. I had never seen a resource center that was alive, where you could actually find things. And so there are many different kinds of resource centers. There's the back of the closet, where things accumulate. There's the filing cabinet you never go back to. This is the opposite. This is meant to be a living resource center, growing, adapting, and thriving. And so we're so happy that Holly and her team have worked with us to put this together. And it is one of the benefits of being a network that operates in different parts of the world. And so we really appreciate this contribution from Australia. I want to say one last thing. I have a confession, because I was asked to review my contributions for quite a while. And I'm afraid I have to confess I didn't get to it until last week. And once I got to it, though, I saw stuff there I never even knew existed. Jake, the work we did in Bogota, in Colombia, there were videos there in Spanish of our work in that workshop. I never knew that existed. So it's a very exciting and living thing. So I just want to encourage everyone else to step up and contribute resources, check on the resources, and let's do whatever they ask us to do, because this is something that can be a real value to all of us. And so again, thank you. Thank you, Holly. Thank you, Mais, and everyone for making this happen. And I'll toss this back to Mais.
Thank you, Marshall. I would like to introduce Holly. Holly Hammond is the Commons Library Director, and she brings over 25 years of social change experience, with almost 15 years of those spent supporting movements to be more effective through training, facilitation, and coaching. An important aspect of her work has been writing, sourcing, editing, and distributing articles and educational sources. So she comes with a great passion to our work, and I also encourage you to check the Commons library if you haven't yet. And I just want to say, apart from Holly's bio, working with her, I just want to say how fantastic she was as a true, smart thinking partner that challenges you and takes things to the next step and makes sure that things are as professional as they should be. So thank you, Holly, for taking us into this journey with a lot of professionalism and a lot of experience that we really needed. Passing the mic to Holly to walk us through the Resource Center.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Mice and Marshall, for your kind words. I feel a little flustered by them. I'm like, oh, I'm really touched. But I'm joining you today from the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations, which is also known as Melbourne, Australia. And I want to pay my respects to elders past and present, and also want to acknowledge and welcome any First Nations people from anywhere in the world who are joining us for this session. So, as has been mentioned, I'm the director of the Commons Social Change Library. Like so many of you, I'm really passionate about changing the world for the better and building people power to make that happen, and the really vital role of learning in that whole process. So I come from a background of being an activist and an organiser and an activist trainer for many years. And I'm also the grandchild of 2 librarians. So it feels like a very good fit for me that these days I get to be a social movement librarian, and it's my role to gather together all of this great wisdom and then make it available to people in accessible ways. So it's kind of a perfect fit for my life. So I'm going to share my screen to give you a bit of a tour of the Resource Centre. And first up, just to show you commonslibrary.org. So as Marshall mentioned, this is a resource directory that we've built up over the last few years. It's got hundreds and hundreds of resources on a really wide range of approaches to social change. So there's a lot of organising materials in here, but there's also digital campaigning, communications and media, non-violent direct action, working effectively in groups. A whole bunch of different topics are included in this library. And really, it's our mission to make social movements smarter and stronger, and to try to be responding to what the learning needs are, in any given moment, as Marshall was sort of saying, trying to be a living collection that's engaged with movements. I want to acknowledge my colleague Archie Dunn, who is really key to setting up the Commons Library so well, and has been a crucial part of setting up of reviewing and updating the LCN Resource Center. And really, we were able to take a lot of the lessons that we learned in setting up the Commons to support the Resource Center. So we work, in this intersection of social change and information management, knowledge management, which I think is a bit of a neglected space, really. So we're really glad that we can take on projects like this and share what we've learned to support us all getting more effective in our work. So here it is. Here's the new Resource Centre. Not actually live at this moment, so I know you're all itching to have a look at it, but you just have to wait a little bit longer. The whole LCN site will be revamped as well, so this is just one part of the site. You can see up here I've gone to Resource Centre and clicked on that, and it's like the home page of the Resource Centre that we're on. You'll see at the top there's a search bar, so you can just go ahead and search for whatever you're looking for. But we've also tried to set the Resource Centre up so that there's many different ways you can access those resources. So I'll show you some of those different ways. On the homepage, there's a welcome message to get started. And then first up, you have a choice about how you want to engage, whether you want to read, watch or listen. So if you're just in the mood to watch videos or listen to some audio, you've got that option. And of course, there's lots and lots of written materials as well. Scroll down, we see explore our resources through our curated guides. So these are guides that have links to lots of different resources within the centre and kind of help you navigate your way through. because we realise that lots of materials can get a bit overwhelming. So the three main topics that the resources have been organised into are organising, narrative, and campaigns and movement building. And these guides will help you look through them. We'll have a look at one of them shortly. And then below that is featured resources. So these are ones that might be newly added or ones that the LCN team think it's a good idea to put in front of you at this point in time. So that'll change over time as well. So coming up, just want you to know that the Browse tab is really the one-stop shop for you to get a sense of all of the different resources. So you can go from here into the three topics as mentioned. You can also browse by tags. So tags are keywords to describe the content of the resources. So you might want to browse the tags to see what's in there, or you might already have an idea of what you're looking for and come to this page and either look for it alphabetically or do a little search on the page to find what you're looking for. You'll also see that authors are listed. So if there's someone in particular you're looking for materials for. Publishers, so that is publishing houses, universities, but it's also lots of your organisations. So yeah, you'll see lots of different not-for-profits and organising centres listed in the publishers. Again, the three topics. Level is just depending on how deep you want to dive. So if you want to start introductory, you can. If you think what you're after is going to be a more detailed research-based material, you might look that way. Resources for. So we're conscious that there's many different audiences and that you have different needs. So we've got resources for academics and researchers, organisers, it's going to have a more practical emphasis to support your work, students and workshop participants, trainers and training coordinators, and workshop coaches. And more audiences will be added over time depending on needs. We've already had a bit of a talk that we might have a way of categorising materials for health professionals or people working on health-related campaigns. So if there's a particular kind of subset of people that you want to put a collection together for, this is one way we can do that. Then you can see it's broken down by region. So if you want to just see materials that are from the region you're working with, or if you're working internationally and you want insight to different places. Country and language. So we're really hopeful that this will build up over time. So if you've got materials that you've translated into other languages, they're so welcome to be added to the Resource Centre. It really helps people in different places get engaged in this approach to organising. So that kind of gives you a bit of a sense of the browse page. We scroll back up. I'll show you one of our topics that we've got. So internet's being a little bit slow today. Sorry, everybody. So yeah, so this is everything that's been categorised as relating to public narrative and story. And you'll see up the top is the guide to public narrative resources. So we want that to be really accessible for you to find your way through the materials, and we'll have a look at that soon. Scroll down, you can see there's a lot of different materials. That's a survey, there's courses, there's reports, reflections, videos, training materials, lots and lots of things. And you can load more posts and you'll find, oodles of materials. But if that's a bit overwhelming, you can also refine. So here on the right, you can see, well, if I only want to see videos, webinars, and audio, I can click here and it will show just those 37. So you can restrict what you're looking at. Where there might be a crossover by topic. So I want to understand how public narrative works in campaigns, for example, or a particular author, author, region, etc. So that just gives you an idea of ways you can cut it down so it doesn't overwhelm you. But I'll show you the Guide to Public Narrative Resources so you have a sense of how things are gathered in that way. So first up, you've got a contents and they're all hyperlinked. So if you just want to jump to the particular thing you're interested in, you can straight away. Got some framing quotes, some introductory articles and overviews about the power of story, more explanation about public narrative. And then we get into story of self, us and now. And then there's examples. And I think this is really exciting. This is often something that I hear, that people are preparing training and they're looking for videos that they can use as part of their training. And, often I'll see people popping up on Facebook going, oh, who's got a video on XYZ? And that's a great way to connect. But really, we want also all of those examples to land, somewhere accessible in the resource centre. So examples will grow over time. Got all these different videos, some of the classics, and then case studies. So how people have been using public narrative. And, with the listening project that happened, one of the things that came through really strongly there is that people wanted to hear stories of innovation and how people were adapting the organising to their particular context. So I think these kinds of case studies can be really important for sharing that. Training and coaching resources, workshop participant guides, the resources in the different languages, and then some other, if you want to keep on exploring, some other links. So that gives you a bit of a picture of everything. All of these links are to within the resource centre. So they're not external links to other places. It's actually materials that have already been gathered by the network and will just keep on growing over time. So then, to give you a bit of a sense of what one resource looks like within the resource centre, we'll click on this one, Coaching Public Narrative, Lessons by the Resistance School. So that's one of the sources of materials is Resistance School. You can see there's some information on the left about the resource to give you some context, and also if you want to navigate to some of those categories later. But you'll see that the videos are embedded in the resource. So if you want to do this short course, it's very straightforward to just play the videos and keep rolling on to the next one. And with some of the other videos that are in the resource centre, there's accompanying prompts for reflection or kind of training that goes alongside the videos. And then at the bottom of every resource, we've got related posts. So other articles that are kind of relevant to the content here. So we can see there's another video training course, and there's a lot of materials around public narrative. But you can also see the topic is here. So if you want to go back to the broad topic, you easily can. And then you've got tags. So, you came to this resource perhaps because you were interested in coaching. You can then click on the coaching tag to find more materials on that topic. That's just loading up. Yeah, so here we are in coaching. Starts off with a great video on how to build leaderful movements. I want to watch this one. And then you can see there's participant guides, there's different kinds of workshop handouts and materials, the reflective articles, different materials all here on coaching. So that was just a way of kind of giving you a sense of how you can travel through the resource centre. You might start in one place and then kind of follow along. And of course, you've always got the browse tag to come back to kind of get that overview of everything. One thing I want to emphasise is that not everything in the resource centre will be visible to everyone. So you need to be a member of Leading Change Network to have unrestricted access. So you can do that by clicking on Join Us and becoming a member. And if you are a member, do remember to log in before you start looking around the resource centre. So that means you'll get access to everything when you're trying to find stuff. So for example, of something that is only available to members, is a guide for trainers, which I'll just do a quick search for. And you can see this has kind of got a similar presentation as the topic guides as well. So when you see that, you know, there'll be many links to different materials in that one place. So yeah, we're just very conscious that in the Leading Change Network, there are so many people doing amazing training, and training is constantly evolving, and people are looking for the materials to prepare for what they're putting on. You can see, you know, there's such a wealth of different things within the network already that you can then access. So you can see we've got video links here as well. Yep, and coaching materials again. So yeah, just wanted to give you a bit of a quick introduction to the Resource Centre, let you see some of the different materials and some of the ways we've set it up to try to make it easier for you to find what it is you're looking for. And I've mentioned a number of times that, you know, this will grow over time. That only happens if you add resources. So luckily there's a little button here saying add resource. And you can fill out this form and you can see you've got the option to provide a web link. So if it's something that's already on your website, you can do it that way, or you can upload a file. We really appreciate hearing some context for the materials. So if you're the author of the resource, that's really good to know, and that you're giving permission for it to be in the Resource Centre. If it's written by somebody else, if you're able to share their contact details, that's great, so we can double check they're happy with how their materials are presented. And like how also they would like it to be licensed. And when you write a note, you're also really welcome to say if there's a resource you're looking for or you'd like to see in the Resource Centre, so that that can be responded to as well. And just to recognise that everything that's been gathered so far and put on the site's been put there with a sense of goodwill and a recognition of that generosity that's there in the network. But if you see materials that you're like, oh, we're not too sure we did want that to go out in that form, or it needs a little bit of an edit, just let us know and we'll make those changes as soon as possible. So yeah, things can be updated. When the site is live, that's one thing I encourage you to do straight away, is go see, is there anything by you in the Resource Centre? Or you'll have a look at what your organisation already has there, just to do a little bit of that checking, because yeah, certainly we can tune everything up along the way. Yeah, I think that's the main stuff to cover at this point. Really welcome feedback and questions, and just want to say, you know, our mission at the Common Social Change Library is to make social movements smarter and stronger. And what a wonderful partnership to be able to work with Leading Change Network. Like, we've seen your work grow over a number of years, and how well your training is spreading around the world. But to grow in that way, you know, needs infrastructure to support it, and the Resource Centre is part of that. So we're really pleased we could help you to kind of set things up in this way, in a way that's going to keep growing and flourishing over time.
How about an unmuted applause?
I think the host is taking it from here, but I appreciate the claps. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly. Wonderful. And there's some questions and great feedback in the chat. And Mariana have shared a Menti link in the chat. So please, if you have any questions about the Resource Center or like a comment or a feedback, please log into the link and just share your feedback. We're going to share screen and pick up some questions to answer. Holly, shall I give you the floor to answer things?
Yeah, I can answer these ones. So I think the plan is that the 17th of January, the button will be pressed for it to go live, but I'd really emphasize that it will be in kind of beta form, like there'll be some testing happening at that time just to check that the links are speaking to each other and it's working. And we really invite contributors checking their materials in that time too. So 17th of January, and I'm sure there'll also be follow-up emails going out to let you know about the Resource Centre. So the Resource Centre is both public and for members. So a lot of the materials that I have shown you, everyone can see. So where there's a guide to organising, a guide to public narrative, a guide to campaigns and movement building, you'll be able to see that guide, but then some of the links within it, some will be public and some you will need a login in order to access, and you'll get a message letting you know. So that might be a good prompt for you to join the Leading Change Network when you get that.
And I'm gonna answer Christina. So because we are like developing the overall website, so we will send the new links for like membership renewal and access to the resource center on the 17th once we relaunch the website. So right now, just for a week, we're like taking membership because we're like migrating all the old members to the new website. And then on the 17th, we're taking new membership and we're opening the resource center and all the platform together.
Yeah. So we had a late joiner who's wondering about accessing the site. So it's not actually fully live yet. So it's 17th of January, you can see it. And there's a question about how long did it take you and your team to create this? So let us firstly also acknowledge the many previous iterations of resource gathering that have happened in Leading Change Network, and the different people have taken the lead to make that happen over time. I'm not too sure when we started having our initial conversations, maybe in the first quarter of last year, perhaps. And it started with like reviewing how the previous resource center was set up and how that worked and what the content was, and then doing a lot of gathering, looking around to find things, tracking it all in a big database and starting to do the categorization, and then working with the website developer to build it up and populate it. So it's been a big job, but very worthwhile. And in terms of uploading materials, so the Commons Library is continuing to support the LCN Resource Center. So we'll be doing that tagging and categorizing. My colleague Archie will be taking the lead on that. But if you have suggestions yourself, you're really welcome to say that when you're uploading materials. So, you know, if you think it fits with a particular tag or category, you want to emphasize that, that is very welcome.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Sachiko is saying. Definitely join us as members or renew if your membership has expired on the 17th. So we're like opening the doors. We want you to become members. We want you to renew your membership, and we will make sure to send you an email about that so that you don't forget and you have the right link in your inbox.
Look, it's classic organizing, isn't that? Like there's going to be some urgency. We want that date of the 17th of January so you can access all the materials. Get on board, folks. And there was a little question about differentiating audiences. I think there was, I think we had trainers and training coordinators and then workshop coaches, and there is overlap between them. I think there's like how the emphasis on coaching versus training shows up in that difference there. Are there any other questions that people would like to ask? And also really curious to hear if there's particular resource needs, if there are things that you're finding you really want to have your hands on that would make a difference to your work. That helps us think about where there might be gaps. Somebody mentioned some merch. They want a t-shirt, some swag. It's great. I love that enthusiasm. Section devoted to off-site resources such as databases. Yeah, it's a good point. There's so many great resource directories out there. We have a page on the Commons Library that's like a summary of databases or resource directories. So we can look at reproducing that article to have it in the LCN Resource Center as well. Might save some time just to move that one across. And you will also see in terms of contributors that there are some materials from those other places too. So there's I think some Beautiful Trouble articles. There was a collaboration with Beautiful Trouble on a webinar at some point. So it's definite. It's not like, although the emphasis is really on the Leading Change Network and what is most relevant to your networking community. There's a lot of crossover and overlap with other sites and organisations. So someone has asked, can we have a section for materials in other languages? So on the browse page, you scroll down to the bottom of the browse page, you can see the languages there. So you can click straight on whichever language in particular you want to access. And then in those topic guides, you'll see there a summary of resources in different languages on the different topics. So that'll give you a couple of ways to find that. That was for Nico.
And on maybe if any one of you wants to contribute resources in other languages, for us to make sure that the tagging on our side works, we really encourage that you write like the title of the resource in original, language, but also in English, so that we can easily tag it correctly and make it in the right place. And we had already like fantastic volunteers reviewing for us different languages on the Resource Center so far. And we will continue to do that to make sure that we also not like avoid any typos or and make sure that people find things when they search or Google for the, specific thing and find it in our Resource Center without any typos in different languages.
Mm. Someone said, where am I from? I hear a strong accent. I am from Australia. That is an Australian accent. And there was another query about when we go live. It's 17th of January. So version control, look, it's a challenging one and definitely something that I think, we can be looking at comparison and hoping to collect the right information from people about like when was this resource produced and where does it originate from, so that can be checked. But that's also why it's really important to have people in the network engaged with the Resource Centre, so that if you spot something that you think is out of date or something has superseded it, that those updates can happen. Yeah. Thanks, Vandinika.
And honestly, as LCN, I think this is also a longer term project that we should all think about and work on revision of versions of different things, whether it is how we teach strategy or the latest on narrative, and making sure that the sources we have are the latest. So I think this is a longer term investment that we should create as small committees or smaller projects where we work on that during this year. So it's definitely important and we should prioritize it as well. And looking for Vandanika and Jake, counting on you to join us on these efforts as well.
Yeah, that's going to be really important to have a little committee that regularly checks in to see how the Resource Centre is tracking. So there was a question about how often will we be reviewing. So there'll be a kind of regular check-in about how the centre's going. And I think like any good project, it's probably also good to have some kind of annual, stop and review and see how things are. But the idea of the committee is that it's place to identify needs, to hear from people in the network about what the resource needs are that need to be addressed by the Resource Centre, but also to be champions for the Resource Centre, to remind people to be contributing their materials as well, because that's how it stays current and alive.
I would like to take the opportunity for Mariana to share with us another part of the new website for members, the members section, which is also related to resources and might be relevant to the group, to the crowd here. I know many of us register to an LCN event and are really curious about it, but sometimes it conflicts with something you already have or something that you need to do at that time. So one thing that members will also have access to is the events library, like the recordings of all past events of LCN with an easy way to search it. So maybe Mariana can just show us that part also of the members site for you to also get to know part of the new development of the website. And by the way, the automatic renewal is an option you can press for the new website, because it's a new developed membership program.
Thank you, Maisie. Yes. So once you log in, we will share these credentials on the 17th when we officially launch the website. You will see a welcome page of the members section, which can help you navigate all of the things that are inside the members zone. So one of that things is the event recordings, which also has this refined by format that the Resource Center also has. So you can filter by the type of events. So for example, you can see all of LCN community events. And then you can just click inside the event and see the recording. And a brief description on what was the event about, and the recording of the full session.
Thank you, Mariana. So with that, I would like to hear some voices from people who have contributed. So when next week, when you see the Resource Center launch, you will see the authors, and you can you will probably find your name there. And you will find many names of people here in the room who have contributed a lot of rich resources. One of them is Ahel, and we have today with us Yumna, who took a lot of time to really upload all of Ahel's podcasts and infographics and content in Arabic that was translated. So we just want to hear from Yumna on what she thinks of the Resource Center and her use of it or her need of it. And yeah, so let's hear from Yumna, and then we'll hear from Jake.
Thank you, Mais, and congratulations on this. Can you hear me? Yeah, congratulations on this great achievement. Actually, I'm very happy having this today. And I remember the first time I entered a member 2 or 3 years ago on the LCN old website, looking for any resources in Arabic for a workshop we were doing there in Egypt. And I was very glad to find Ahl resources there. So it helped us a lot. So we didn't reinvent the wheel. So today I'm very happy to have all these resources in all these languages on the Resource Center. Actually, for us, as I'm coordinating the other network for community organizers in the Arab world, so we have learning seasons, and of course we will be it will be very helpful to find resources for all the topics we are discussing. We are learning, we have learning circles on ground in different Arab countries. So it's very helpful to get all these resources either in Arabic or translate them from the language, from the original language to Arabic. So I'm very excited about having this. I contributed with the podcast. So we have other podcasts, 8 episodes, which are covering examples from the Arab world about community organizing on the ground. So we have 8 examples from Tunisia, from Jordan, Palestine. They are all in Arabic, and we are going to have other seasons and also contribute with them on the LCN Resource Center. I would like to invite you, if you know Arabic, to hear them. Yeah, thank you, Mais, and back to you.
Thank you, Yumna.
Thank you, Marshall.
Thank you, Yumna. And with that, I would like to invite Jake to share some of his insight.
Thanks, Mais and Yumna, and everybody. Hi, great to see folks and meet folks. Yeah, when I was asked to reflect on this, I was remembering when I first started doing workshops back in 2009, and what materials we had then versus what materials exist now. And it's quite amazing to see the difference. I remember we were doing workshops, Joy Cushman and I were doing some workshops with Move On as they were trying to build out some offline capacity. And we initially had made copies of Marshall, like drawn copies of Marshall's charts. And we did our first workshop with like 40 people and we were able to use the charts. And then our next workshop had like 140 people in it. And we realized they would not be able to see the charts. And so during the breaks, Joy and I were in the hall creating PowerPoints by taking pictures of the charts and putting them on PowerPoint slides. And so at least that was my first introduction to having some other visual options other than Marshall's charts. And it's amazing to see in these last 12, 13, 14 years, how they've been added to. The visualizations, the ways in which things are explained, and how they can come full circle. So every now and then, the way I've learned new approaches is by partnering with new trainers and then seeing, oh, they took that and added this, that's interesting, and can see the way it grows. But that's the way the Resource Center has worked up until now. It's sort of happenstance. For a while, Marshall was the Resource Center. And then, many others have become it, but it always felt like, oh gosh, well, how lucky I was to be working with Mais and see how she did that. And that piece was there and I'm going to borrow that and I'll ask her for it. So seeing this, and obviously I haven't seen the full launch yet, but just imagining all the resources that exist and all the opportunity to look there and learn from folks, it's really hopeful. And I think it'd be very exciting opportunity to be able to see, oh, look at that. I don't even know this person, but I want to reach out to them in ways in which the center can come alive in the work that we're all doing. So really grateful for all the work that went into it. Congratulations on this beginning, and looking forward to contributing and learning from it. So thanks, Mais.
Thank you, Jake. And one thing to share, Jake sent me last week saying, oh, I think I haven't sent my resources. But then when I opened the resource center, because of course we migrated our old resource center into the new one, we had tons of things that says Jake Waxman from your old contributions on the network from the first resource center. So thank you for your continued upload on your resources. And with that, I want to call another voice, Benedict. He shared a quotation because he didn't want to make it to the meeting today, but he's here. So let's hear you live, Ben.
Hi, thanks for pointing that out. Yeah, no, it's great. It's fantastic. This is such a great achievement for LCN to get this resource center up and running. I know the first time that I actually had contact with organizing at all was via a very old website that looked like it came from the 90s, that was from Harvard University, where I basically sat down online and just worked my way through all the resources that were there for organizing. And at that stage, I was working in Sweden and trying to organize, and none of this stuff was available. And for me, working with activists and trying to organize them and trying to engage them and being frustrated about not knowing how to do it, this was like this epiphany moment. So it was fantastic. And so since then, I mean, the internet has been a fantastic way of accessing this information. So for me, I love the Resource Center, and I think it's fantastic. And in many ways, it represents the collective knowledge and work of this whole movement. And when I started working with the resources, the first thing I did was translate them into Swedish, obviously, because that's where I was working. And then just to see how all that stuff has been spreading across the globe and how we've all translated it and all the different nuances, and talking to people that have done those translations as well, and sort of how do we translate public narrative into our own languages? Small things like that has been fantastic discussions, and they've been great. I think for me, the Resource Center as well is they're the footprints of our old campaigns as well. where we've come from. So we do our campaigns, and we have our resources, and we put them into that resource center. But they're also the starting point from where we're going as well. So it's both the past and the future, and I think that's a fantastic thing with this resource center, is that it's so valuable in so many ways, both remembering but also moving forward. And I think that as well, the more I come into this network, and the more I start to recognize the names of the people that are writing the resources. And when you go in and you read the resources that other people have written, you get to know them a little bit better as well. How they think, how they express themselves, and how they express themselves via the terminology of organizing as well. I think that is a fantastic way for me to get to know other people a little bit better as well. So I love the Resource Center in so many ways, and I'm really excited to see this new Resource Center when it's launched on the 17th. And I just want to congratulate LCN and the Commons Library for putting this together. This is fantastic. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Jake. Thank you, Yumna. And thanks to all of you for showing up today and joining us in this celebration to get to know more about the Resource Center, but also for all of you who have contributed or who have now thought of contributing or joining LCN as members, because we really want you all to be part of this movement. So a big thank you to all of you. And I also want to add a special thanks to Thaer Zriqat, who did the web development of the Resource Center, which wasn't an easy job, putting it together and working across all our aspiring demands. And Juman Abu Jbara, who did a thorough revision of the Arabic resources, as well as everything coming from Latin America and Middle East. And Anshe and Holly, of course, again, thank you for all the work and continued support, that you will continue to work with us the journey to make sure that you leave us in safe hands by end of year or something. So thanks for that. And just as a reminder, especially if anyone joined recently, so the official launch is on the 17th. And members will get an email to renew their logins, because it's a new system. So you will get an email to how to log into the new system and how to renew your password. And expired members will get renewal emails as well. And everyone attending this will get an invitation to join. So we hope to see you there, and we hope to see a huge influx of membership when we launch. And with that, my last request, I know we said it so many times today, but this project will only be successful if we all really contribute to it. So please keep your resources coming, and we hope to see active community members sharing with us resources, giving us insights into things to fix, whether on the website or on the Resource Center. We will still be on beta version until mid-February. So we are really looking forward to hear more feedback and critical feedback, any mistakes or typos. We know that there will be some mistakes at the beginning. So we hope to together fix them to make sure that we are more confident with the version we will have in February. With that, I pass the mic to Sachiko.
Thank you, Mais. All right, so we are at the end of our celebration. So as in the spirit of how we always end our sessions, can I ask everyone to take a moment to write in the chat your takeaways for today's from today's session? And that could also be your hopes. What are you looking forward to using the Resource Center on when it's launched? So if you can take a moment to write them in the chat, that will be fantastic. And as you're doing that, I also want to go over what is coming up next. Marsha is currently visiting Stanford as distinguished lecturer with the Haas Center for Public Service. And we have an exciting webinar that's happening tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. That's online. So I would definitely encourage you to register and sign up and participate. And then we also have exciting learning sessions coming up at LCN. So on 28th this month, we have a training showcase on the lessons and innovations from the FICPF Organizing Fellowship on transforming the criminal justice system, with a special focus on how we train participants to become trainers and coaches in their communities. We have our monthly meeting Connect on February 3rd. And then on February 9th, we will be joined by Ruth Wagman, one of the foremost scholars of studying and working with leadership teams to teach us how we can build great teams. And our first orientation to organizing of the year will be on 15th of February with a special focus on health justice. So these are all exciting learning events. Mariana will be dropping the links to them in the chat. So I hope that you can register and we'll see you there. And again, I'd like to invite everyone to join LCN as a member or subscriber to obviously get access to the full resource center and the resources. All right, so that's it for today's session. I would like to thank everyone. Thank you to Marshall, and a special thank you to Holly and for developing such a wonderful resource center. Thank you to everyone who contributed, and thank you to each and every one of you for being here today to celebrate the launch. I wish we had like a virtual ribbon to cut, but we'll have to imagine it because we don't have that, fortunately. But thank you also. Maybe we can unmute and give a big round of applause to this project. Thank you all. All right, so take care, stay safe, and have a great rest of the week. And we'll see you at our first future learning events in our resource center.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks
so much.
Thanks, Grace, everybody. Nice to meet you, Holly. Wonderful work.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you, Holly. Thank you, Marsha.
Thank you, awesome LCN team.
Thank you so much, Holly.
Enjoy to work with.